Have you ever played a game you didn't fully understand? One that felt like it was playing you instead? Some stories aren't just meant to be heard, they're meant to be felt. And what you're about to experience isn't just a tale about a haunted house or an old woman with secrets. It's a game, a choice, a trap you won't realize you've stepped into until it's already too late. This isn't the kind of horror that screams at you from the dark. It whispers, it waits, it watches, and the more you listen, the closer it gets. So sit back, but don't get too comfortable, because once you start this story, something starts watching you. And if you leave before the end, it might just follow. The last thing Emily expected when she returned to her hometown was to end up in her grandmother's old house, let alone participating in some strange ancient game the old woman used to whisper about in her sleep. It had been 10 years since her grandmother passed away, and longer still since Emily had stepped inside the ivy-choked Victorian home nestled at the edge of Pine Hollow. The house was still as imposing as ever, weathered wood, arched windows like watching eyes, and a porch that groaned like it was alive. A recent inheritance had brought her back, along with a letter. The envelope was yellowed and sealed with red wax. Her name, Emily Rose Thatcher, was written in perfect cursive across the front. She found it inside a locked drawer of her grandmother's desk, which had been untouched for years. Inside was a single piece of parchment. My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, it means the house is yours now, and the game must begin once more. You are always my favorite, and I trust you to follow the rules. Do not ignore them. If you play fair, you may survive. If you cheat, the house will take what is owed. To begin, light the candle in the attic at midnight. Say my name 3 times. Wait for instructions. With love, Emily read the letter 3 times, laughing nervously each time. It had to be a joke. Her grandmother always had a flair for the dramatic. Still, something about the brittle paper and the heavy scent of lavender clinging to it made her skin crawl. That night, curiosity gnawed at her. At exactly midnight, she crept up to the attic with a matchbox and the dusty candle she found in a box marked "Keep Away." The stairs creaked beneath her, each step louder than the last. The attic was colder than the rest of the house, and the shadows hung like thick curtains in the corners. She placed the candle on an old wooden table, struck the match, and watched the flame flicker to life. "Margaret Thatcher," she whispered. Once, twice, 3 times. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the candle flared as if caught in a sudden gust of wind. The flame turned blue. The attic walls seemed to breathe in around her, inhaling the silence. Emily stumbled back, heart hammering in her chest. The table now held something it hadn't before. A small wooden box. It hadn't been there a second ago. Hands shaking, Emily opened it. Inside was a worn deck of playing cards, each one etched with strange symbols and faded ink. There was also a folded note. "Welcome to the game. There are 3 rounds, you must play them all. Each round begins at midnight. Follow the rules. Never lie. Never leave the house during the game. If you win, you may leave. If you lose, she comes for you." A sudden chill raced down her spine. She turned toward the attic door, but it had vanished. In its place was a wall. She was trapped. Something moved behind her, a soft shuffle, a breath. Emily turned slowly, heart thudding so loud it drowned out the silence. There, in the farthest corner of the attic, was her grandmother's rocking chair. And it was rocking. Back and forth, as if someone invisible was sitting in it. Then a voice, soft and sharp like a blade of glass. "Let's play, sweetheart." Emily's breath caught in her throat as the rocking chair creaked back and forth without a soul in sight. The attic seemed to close in around her, the air thick with the scent of old lavender and something darker, something rotten. She gripped the edge of the table, her eyes fixed on the chair as it rocked one last time, then stopped completely, the silence around her turning absolute. She glanced at the cards again. They were no ordinary playing cards. The images on them shifted when she wasn't looking directly at them. One moment a smiling face, the next a skull grinning with hollow eyes. Her fingers hovered over the deck before finally lifting the top card. A jolt of cold shot through her arm the second she touched it. The card depicted a girl trapped in a maze, walls dripping with shadow. Written at the bottom, in the same elegant handwriting as the letter, was one word: Run. Before she could process it, the attic light went out, plunging her into darkness. A faint rustling noise came from the shadows. Then footsteps. Not hers. She bolted for where the attic door had once been, but the wall was still there. She spun around wildly, heart thudding like a drum, until her eyes adjusted to the candle's eerie blue glow. The flame hadn't gone out. It pulsed, almost like a heartbeat, casting long, spindly shadows across the room, and one of those shadows moved. It stepped out from behind the rocking chair. Not a person. Not really. It had her grandmother's shape, her shawl, her bun of thin silver hair, but the face was blurred, constantly shifting, like a painting submerged in water. "Let the first round begin," it said, in that same soft glass voice. Suddenly, Emily was no longer in the attic. She stood in a hallway that stretched endlessly in both directions, its walls lined with ancient, grimy wallpaper and flickering bulbs that hung by frayed wires. The floor creaked beneath her bare feet, and the air felt damp, like something had been crying in the walls for years. Every few feet, a mirror hung crookedly, each one reflecting her image differently. Some were older, some younger. One had no reflection at all. At the end of the hallway, a grandfather clock began to chime. 1, 2, 3. She didn't wait for it to finish. Emily ran. Doors appeared on either side as she moved, each one whispering her name in voices not her own. Some were familiar. Childhood memories echoed behind them. Her mother's lullaby, the sound of Christmas morning, the bark of her first dog. Others whispered things she couldn't bear to remember. Screams, fights, a car crash on a rainy night. She didn't stop. Then she saw it. The maze. Just like the one on the card. The hallway opened into a vast labyrinth of hedges, impossibly tall and suffocatingly narrow. Fog clung to the ground like a living thing. Somewhere in the distance, a music box played a haunting off-key melody. A small, childlike voice whispered, "Find the center before she finds you." Emily stepped into the maze. The hedges rustled behind her, sealing the entrance. She could feel the maze shifting, breathing, responding to her presence. Every turn she took seemed wrong. Paths doubled back on themselves. Time stretched. The music box faded in and out, sometimes sounding closer, sometimes farther away. Whispers floated through the leaves, growing louder with each step. She's coming. She's hungry. She never left. At one turn, she nearly tripped over something in the path. A doll. Its eyes black and mouth sewn shut. Emily bent down to move it aside, and it blinked. A real wet blink. She screamed and ran, the branches clawing at her arms like fingers. Then the fog parted, revealing the center of the maze. There stood the same rocking chair. Her grandmother sat in it now, visible and still. The face no longer blurred. It was her, but her skin was pale and tight over sharp bones, lips thin, eyes black and bottomless. In her lap she held the deck of cards. Emily approached slowly, trembling. Her grandmother smiled. "You ran well, but the maze doesn't end unless you play." She held out a card. Emily took it. This one showed a house. Her house. Every window dark. A small figure stood in the doorway. Her grandmother's smile widened. "Now, wake up!" The ground dropped beneath her feet. She sat up in the attic, gasping for breath. The candle was still burning, but something had changed. Her reflection in the dusty window was no longer hers. It smiled. She didn't. Emily stumbled back from the window, heart hammering in her chest. Her reflection stood perfectly still, grinning with her mouth, though she felt nothing but dread. When she raised her hand to touch the glass, the reflection didn't follow. It stayed there, smiling, watching. She turned away, trying to steady her breath. The attic was silent again, the candle flickering lower. The wooden box sat closed on the table, as if it had never been opened. She approached slowly, every instinct screaming at her to run, but the house was no longer giving her a choice. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid once more. A final card lay inside. It showed a mirror, shattered through the center. Behind the cracks, her face. Below the image, written in fine ink, "Round 3, break the lie." A soft thud echoed from beneath her feet, then another. Footsteps, heavy, slow. Coming from the stairs, she backed toward the wall, pressing herself against the cold wood as the attic door, now somehow returned, creaked open. But no one stood in the doorway, only a mirror, propped up where the stairs should be. Its surface was dark like water at midnight. Emily stepped closer, drawn to it despite the terror clawing at her spine. When she looked into it, she saw herself again. This time as a child, maybe 8 years old, standing alone in the hallway of this very house. Her small hands clutched a doll, the same one she'd seen in the maze. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then the child looked up and stared straight into Emily's eyes. "You lied," the girl mouthed. The attic trembled. The walls groaned, the candles sputtered violently. The air shifted, thick with the scent of scorched flowers and something deeper, like burnt sugar and rot. The child in the mirror opened her mouth again, and this time the sound came through, a high, piercing wail that shattered the candle's flame and sent cracks through the floor beneath Emily's feet. She fell, again, but not into darkness. She landed in her old bedroom. Everything was exactly how she remembered it. The yellow walls, the shelves full of books, the poster of the moon above her bed. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then she saw it. Her grandmother's rocking chair, sitting in the corner, empty. A whisper curled through the silence. "One last move, Emily." She turned to the desk where the card deck now rested. One card remained. It was blank. She picked it up. Her name etched itself onto the surface in real time, the ink bleeding like fresh blood. Underneath, a question formed. "Do you accept what you are?" She stared at the card. Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. Then she heard the door creak open behind her. She didn't turn. She couldn't. "Say it." Her grandmother's voice hissed, no longer sweet. "Say the truth." Emily's voice trembled. "I left you to die." The air grew still. Even the house seemed to stop breathing. "I heard you calling for me that night," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I didn't come. I pretended I didn't hear. I was scared. I stayed in bed." The mirror on the far wall shattered, shards falling like icy rain, and then silence. The candle relit itself on the desk, but this time it burned clean and white. The house no longer pulsed. The walls no longer whispered. The rocking chair sat still. She looked down at the final card again. It was blank. Then it dissolved in her hand. The door opened. The real door. Emily stepped out of the room, through the hallway, down the stairs. The house no longer groaned beneath her steps. The front door stood open, golden light pouring in from a world beyond. She crossed the threshold, the weight lifting from her shoulders with each step. But as she walked away, something tugged at the back of her mind. A memory, or maybe a warning. She looked back once, just before the house disappeared from view. In the topmost window, barely visible behind the glass, her grandmother stood, smiling, and in her hand, the deck. No one ever knew what happened in that house, not really. But sometimes when I'm alone late at night, I hear the soft creak of a rocking chair. And when I look in the mirror, just for a second, I see her smile instead of mine. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something else. Maybe the game isn't over. And if you're hearing this right now, maybe it's your turn.